Okay, so today I wanted to talk about the power of positivity and managing your mindset to stay positive. And I know that this is, a very hard thing to do in sales, to continuously stay positive. And obviously it's not possible to be this happy person all the time. But there are ways and tools of being able to get yourself out of that negative energy if you start feeling getting sucked into that. And I'm going to go into why that's important and how to do that so that you can have more success in the long run. So we all know being in sales, it can be really energizing and it can be really draining. So when we think about it, about 50% of your success in sales actually comes from having a positive mindset. And what success is really about, I'm not talking about just having rainbows and flowing cash raining down from the sky all the time, just like, I love life all the time. I'm just talking about the fact of being a successful salesman is about how well you can bounce back from failure. That's about having a positive mindset. So when we get into these struggles or these slumps or these negative, attitudes or mindsets, how fast can you pull yourself back to get back to that norm of positivity? And the biggest success code for this, to keep yourself in that positive mindset, is about having self-reflection and being able to be self-aware enough to think back and think about, how did I get to this point? What do I am doing that may be getting me to this point? And how do I want to get myself out of this point? So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about today. So the first part about this self-reflection, and the second part is about having an action plan for success. So if you're down in the dump, you're taking a step back and you're thinking about what's causing that way of getting there. So we've got this graph, right? We all get into these ups and downs, and this is where it can get really draining. Was one day you're in the top of the world, you're just loving life, you're so excited because you just closed a bunch of deals, and then maybe the next week you're just like, oh my God, I want to just quit this job, I hate this job. So how do we get ourselves into this mode? We've all had these experiences. So having a positive mindset, you're always going to have your little ups and downs, but being able to get back to that norm is going to keep you from getting into those negative lows and dragging you down. Because what happens when we get into that negative mindset? We start feeling like, oh my gosh, like I have to get up in the morning. I have to go and knock on doors, or I have to go sit with this person. And it starts to cloud our overall feeling of why we're even doing this job. And then next thing we know, anytime that someone asks us a question, we're instantly assuming that they're just bringing out a concern and that they don't want to do this. And we just start digging ourselves deeper and deeper into a hole. And I've seen this in myself in the past, and I've seen this with many sales reps. And it can be really, really detrimental if we don't catch it early enough and pull ourselves back out of it. So what is the great parts of having a positive attitude? First thing, it makes you feel lighter. You feel like you can really be yourself. You can laugh. You can crack more jokes. It helps you to build better relationships with people. It also allows you to feel like you can keep more of an indifferent attitude. If you're not feeling in this down slump attitude of, oh God, I got to close deals, I got to hit my quota, you're just going in there to have fun, because that's what this is all about at the end of the day, right? It's about having fun, making money, and actually helping these people with bettering their lives as well. And what I've noticed is when I do get into that positive mindset, when I'm just on a roll, and I'm just, just closing deals back to back, and you've got people, they're just loving you, they're just begging you to move in and feed you dinner and call all their friends and referrals. It gives you this new source of energy, to continue your success. It's like once you start closing with your deals and you're on that high and you're riding that wave of that high, all you want to do is go close more deals, right? Whereas if you're in that negative mindset, you're just like dreading every single day and counting down the days to the weekend. So we want to spend most of our time obviously in the positive and less in the negative. So you want to figure out, how am I going to get that reserve, that source of energy? So like I said, it's about self-reflection and about having an action plan. So what do we mean when I say having an action plan? So having an action plan is about using your self-discipline to sit down in a time when you're not in an execution time and think about, okay, what do I need to do to be able to hit my goals for this week? So if I have a goal of 3 deals this week, What am I going to specifically do? Am I going to have to go to 2 business networking meeting events to get 5 different leads? Am I going to have to sit with 10 people? What is it that I want to specifically action plan to do to set myself up for success? So that's the first part. The second part is to be able to actually execute on that plan despite distractions and emotions. Because that's what life loves to do, right? You're having a great old time, things are going great, and then whoop-bam, all of a sudden you're hit with life and distractions, personal life, or emotions start getting in the way and they start taking you out of that plan. So this is this part where it's up to you to take this self-discipline, come up with this action plan, and execute on that regardless of emotions and distractions. Then it comes to actually changing your mindset. So you've got your action plan, you say, okay, I've got my plan to get myself back out of this slump. What am I going to do to actually get my happiness back? So you want to ask yourself, you know, why do I do this job? Or what is it that I'm actually really providing? What makes me different from all these other sales reps that they're meeting with? You know, what are my top 5 qualities that I'm bringing to these customers? So maybe you're really good at building relationships. You know, remind yourself of that, because sometimes we forget to remind ourselves of the greatness that we really exude in ourselves, especially if we're getting rejected time and time and time again. So reminding yourself of the positives of what you do bring to the table will help you to start switching your mindset of thinking about your appointments in a positive way. Then this comes into where the self-reflection comes in as well. So if you've been in a slump, start thinking and really analyzing every appointment that you go into. So in my last appointment, you know, what were ways that I exuded confidence and simplicity and trust and social influence and indifference? These are the six success code principles that really training on, and it's our foundation, because this is what it truly means to be a successful salesperson, is to be able to really exude these principles. So take some time and think, okay, how have I actually exuded these things? And if you're realizing, oh, you know what, I actually haven't been keeping things very simple. I've been blabbing on and not letting them talk. It's going to give you some good ideas of maybe where you need to go to fix some of the issues that you've been having that have gotten you into this slump in the first place. And then you can take that one step further and think, okay, so what do I want to do to make sure that I do something differently for the next home? So if I'm realizing that I've been a blabbermouth and I'm not letting them talk and I haven't been keeping things simple, I want to make sure in my next home that I keep things slow, that I let them talk, that I allow there to be silence, and that's going to help you to change your process to get back to success. So we actually have a sales advisor self-coaching framework tool. And this is a really great tool that you can use whenever you're feeling like you need to self-analyze and be more aware of your appointments. So a great tool for you to use, whether you have someone shadowing you on an appointment or not, is to just record yourself in that appointment, and then after that appointment, actually fill out this spreadsheet here so that you can see exactly the things that you've been doing great and the things that you have desired improvement for. And this, by far, believe me, I've used this so many times, and without even realizing it, I've actually identified the areas of why I've had problems and how to fix that just on my own without needing anyone else to come in and shadow me. So it's a great tool to use. Second part about changing your mindset, going back to the basics. So we've all been taught how to sell. We all know how to sell. But what usually happens? So we start off, and I see this time and time again too with training new people. The new hires, they come out of the gates just crushing it. I think I've had some sales reps that have gone 7 for 7 in their first few weeks. Back-to-back sales, just completely crushing it. But then we kind of start getting, get cocky. We start thinking like, oh, I totally got this. I know what I'm doing. I don't really need to follow a process. I don't really need to stick to scripts. And you start deviating a little bit, and the next thing you know, you've completely lost what you were doing and how you were doing things, and you don't really have any process, and that's when you start going on that downward trend. So going back to the basics, going back to those scripts, going back to those processes, whatever you were taught in the beginning that was originally working for you, taking some time, once again, in a non-execution time, to review these things will help you to remind yourself of what it is that you did when you were successful, to bring yourself back up out of that. Never stop reflecting. Like I said, the first part about the moment that you stop reflecting is the moment that you allow your brain to go on autopilot and that you lose some of your self-discipline that it takes to be 100% on top of your game every week. So recording yourself in the home, like I said, and analyzing your performance, this is a great tool. The other thing that I really like to do a lot is to visualize the sale before you go into the home. So we all know we want to show up about 15 minutes early to the home just so we can stay prepared, plan the appointment. But I like to take it one step further, and I like to take a second and actually visualize myself walking out of that home with signed paperwork, looking back over my shoulder, waving to them and smiling, and telling them I'm going to be back in a few weeks for referrals. And actually putting that out into the world and into your head guarantees you to have so much of a better atmosphere and attitude going into that home than if you were running in, rushing from another appointment and feeling a little bit flustered and just trying to get through the day. Taking that time to really sink in and think, okay, this appointment, if I execute everything like I know how to do, I'm going to walk out with paperwork. The next thing that I also like to do to keep myself in that positive mindset, I actually create a selling mantra. And this may sound a little silly, but what I like to do is before I knock on the door, I take a few minutes. So I've already been in my car visualizing myself closing this deal. Then right before I get to the door, take a deep breath, I knock on the door, and I say this selling mantra to myself. And what it is it's 4 words that remind me of the kind of person that I want to be when I'm in that home, the kinds of things that I want to exude. And my mantra is confidence, maturity, respect, and compassion. And I know that if I exude those 4 things in the home, on top of doing the normal process and building a good relationship and building trust, that I'm going to have success in that home. And I've watched myself and I've seen the times when I'm in a slump when I don't do that versus the times when I'm on top of my game and I do this every time. And there is a huge difference just in my overall mindset of how I feel when I'm interacting with customers. And it's really interesting to see how customers respond differently to me depending on the kind of mindset that I have. And I'm sure you guys have all been used to this and experienced this yourself with the different types of mindsets you've been in and the way customers have interacted with you because of that. So pay attention to it and keep an eye on it because it's a really big part. Like I said, it's about 50% of the success of your sales comes in the way that your mindset is formatted. So, and the last thing, like I said, is obviously you want to be prepared. So if you're coming in and you are prepared, you're naturally just a lot more relaxed in the home. And people are going to pick up on that, and they're going to be really impressed. It's going to exude professionalism, and it's going to naturally want them to give you their business a lot more than if you're, like I said, flustered and running in last minute and just trying to get through the process and get through the appointment to get on to your next thing. So remember to take these things as extreme importance. Even though they seem so basic, they really will help you to continue your success moving forward. So we've all had those highs and we've all had those lows, but what it takes to be truly successful, it takes consistency. And consistency is something that is the hardest thing to have, is to consistently be good on a week-to-week basis. That is the real truth of being a successful salesperson. And unfortunately, I alone cannot create positive mindsets for all of you. I can give you pep talks, I can give you one-on-one coaching, but this is really going to come up to you. And it's going to be up to you to build this in yourself and to consistently be working on it throughout your time as a salesperson. So I urge you to take this and really let it sink in, use the tools, and I want to let you know that I am always here for support and for coaching if you ever need anything. I'm more than happy to work with you individually to get you guys back to wherever you want to be in terms of your success.